Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's been a while. So it was just Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody. Hope you have a good holidays and the New Year's coming up. We're gonna do some work on the 03 Sportster. It's 883, like I said before. And for Christmas, we got a Ultima single fire ignition to give it a rev limiter because stock, the 03 and down or 06 and down non-fuel injected Sportsters, they do not have a rev limiter. So this ignition will replace the ignition behind this cover here, and it'll put a new coil on it. So we will get into that. I also got a couple other parts. We got, I'll bring you in and I'll show you. So we got some stuff in the mail from the sponsor. It says pump to see these on your Sporty. Ride safe, homie. And this is from a company out in Canada, Tooth and Nail Industries. I'll put their link in the description to their website. They sent me a set of these pegs for the Sporty. We're gonna run these for next season. Really appreciate that, guys. You rock. Thank you. And then here we got a Sporty Mob top clamp. We're gonna run on it up there. It's gonna look awesome. So we'll slap those on after we do the ignition. All right, I figure we'll go through. I'll show you what all came in the kit. We got a set of wires if you want. We got the new ignition. It's got like dip switches and settings. There's instructions. You pick what you want. You can set your RPM limit. You can set the VOES. You got the dual fire, single fire mode, and then you got all the different curves for if you do like a big bore motor and stuff. So you got that. Got a new rotor, and then we got a new ignition coil. New ignition coil to replace the ignition coil up top. So there's our parts. All right, so we're gonna start by, there's two rivets on the stock cover. We have to drill these out, so we're gonna start with that. Cover's off. Then we got two Phillips screws. Take that off. All right, so here's the ignition now. We got to take these flathead screws off, but I like to put in here with a Sharpie, kind of where it was originally on the stock plate, just because it's a good practice in my opinion. I don't know, you don't have to do that, but it just helps me have an idea on where the stock one was set. So I'm gonna put a Sharpie mark in there. And we're gonna mark that, Sharpie. Okay. All right, now we can take these screws out. And then the ignition pulls out. You can see there's back there, we got the ignition and the rotor. All right, so we got it loose. Now we got to come underneath here, and the plug is right here. So we're gonna have to cut. We're gonna cut these stock zip ties. And then we can unplug the plug. So I'm gonna do that now. All right, so once you get the plug unplugged and loose, I like to just go back a little ways from it and then snip the wires. Because we gotta pull this out here, out of the cover. So, pull that through. There's the stock ignition module out. Now we're gonna change the cup inside. All right, now the stock cup can come off. It's a 5/16 bolt. So we're gonna loosen that. There's the stock cup off. Now we got the new cup. We're gonna install it the same way that that one was. There's a little nub on the cup, and you have to line it up with the nub on the shaft there. So that's what we're gonna do, line it up now. We wanna put a little dab of blue Loctite on this bolt because it's gonna be going in there and spinning and stuff. We don't want it to come loose. Make sure you get that cup lined up in this shaft nut. All right, we got the cup installed now. We can fish the new ignition module down through the hole. We're gonna fish this new ignition module wiring down the hole. There it goes. And slide the ignition module into its home. Pretty much it will mount. It's gonna mount pretty much straight up and down like that. So we'll loosely put these screws in now. We're gonna tighten them down just to where they seat, and then back a little bit, because you want to be able to turn. This module turns a little bit for advancing and retarding the timing. So we're gonna leave it like that, and we'll set all the dip switch settings to the instructions, which we'll look at. But next we'll start with the ignition coil. We'll change that out. So we're gonna have to take off the bolt on the gas tank, and we'll block the tank up a little bit so that we can unbolt this ignition coil and put the new one in. So we gotta take this the gas tank bolt out now. Lift the tank up to get the ignition out. We can unplug the stock wires. All right, got the coil out. So the stock ignition coil has two plugs on the top for the power and ground, and then the two plug wires, and the bracket just went through the bolt for the gas tank. So that's out now. We can take the bracket off, and we will bolt it onto the new coil. We're gonna bolt the bracket now onto the new coil. They're 11mm bolts. You want to put the bracket on this way, facing away, so that when it mounts, the wires and plugs are towards the rear. All right, we got that coil all together now. I don't think that the stock So I'm just gonna we're gonna just reuse the stock plug wires because they only have 8,000 miles on them on this ignition. So we're gonna mount the ignition up, and we're gonna get these wires spliced up next so that they can land on the terminals. So these will go onto there. So up here we got a pink wire and a white wire that went to the ignition coil. We're using the white wire with the black line The pink wire we're not using anymore. We're gonna be using the pink wire from the ignition. So we gotta cut this connector here off, and that is going to hook onto this terminal. So we're gonna cut the connector off the white wire. Take our strippers. So on my bike, we have the VOES switch, it's called, and it plugs onto the frame right here. Here's the plug, and it has a purple and black wire. We need to cut the purple wire off of this plug coming from the harness, and we're gonna splice into that purple wire. All right, so when I run the wire from the ignition through, I run it up underneath. I don't know if we'll be able to see, but there's a groove here that you go in front of, so you don't go into the pulley area. You don't want the wires in pulley. You go up here through here, and then I run it along the oil hoses. We're gonna zip tie it to those, and then I tuck it up underneath this bracket here, and then it's coming up here. We're gonna zip tie it here, up off the motor. We're gonna zip tie it up here, run it behind this hose here, towards the front, run it up towards the front here, and that's where the wires will land to the coil. We'll trim them down a little shorter because they don't need to be that long. They'll be about here. So here then though, I got this VOS switch running. So this one's gonna plug back into the plug up here, and I have the purple wire from the ignition ran to the purple wire on the VOES switch. So that'll be plugged back in, and then we'll work on wiring up the coil. All right, so I did some of the wiring off camera. This is the blue wire. It goes to this side, the exhaust side. The center gets the white wire from the ignition wiring and the white wire from the bike's coil, original coil. Then this side of the coil gets the pink. So it goes pink, white, and then blue. Pink, 2 whites, and then a blue wire from the ignition. Now we're just gonna go through, we're gonna zip tie and clean this wiring all up. Zip tie it up out of the way. And then we got the coil hooked up. We'll put the tank bolt back in and we will get it running. All right, we got the wiring all tucked up in. We got the coil all wired. Remember, blue, white, and pink. The blue's right there. I just had to splice a wire on. So you got to make sure that you put the front cylinder on this side of the plug wire, and then the rear cylinder. These are the Ultima wires. I ended up swapping them because the stock front one will not reach that side of the coil. The rear wire from the coil goes there. While we were working on it, we found we need to change that hose right there for the vacuum for the petcock. So that's got to get changed. Take one more quick look at the wiring. We got it all in there for the coil. We have the ignition dip switches. We got 1 on, 2 off, 3 off, 4 off, 5 off, and 6 on. And that corresponds to these instructions, which will come with your kit when you order it from Ultima. And then you just go through, and for whatever settings you have, you'll set it. I have it set on curve 1. I have 5,500 RPMs. And we are on single fire mode. All right, when we turn the key on, that light will blink. That means it's ready to go. So now we can put this cover back on, but we have to put it straight up and down because the screw holes are this way instead of the other way like before for stock. So installed, it looks like that sideways instead of straight. I'll swap the stock top clamp out for the Sporty Mob one. All right, we got the stock clamp off. We got the Sporty Mob clamp on the bars. Relocated the Speedo temporarily. We're gonna get some new bolts and new mounts and mount it down there because it kept hitting me in my face where it was mounted here. So I could just delete it, but I want to keep it, so. All right, guys, we got the limiter all installed, ready to go. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.